This is the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast with your hosts Chris Spear and Andrew Wilkinson. Each week, we'll be speaking with food entrepreneurs and people in the culinary industry. If you're interested in learning more about our organization dedicated to helping people build and grow their food businesses, look us up on the web at chefswithoutrestaurants.com and .org and on Facebook and Instagram at Chefs Without Restaurants. Now, enjoy the show. This is episode 30 of the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast. On this episode, we have Chef Josh Fidler. Josh is a chef in the Gettysburg, PA area. He was the chef and owner of Fidler & Co. in Biglerville, and most recently consulted on the menu and kitchen at Gearhouse Brewing Co. in Chambersburg. Currently, he is working on a new project called Mela Kitchen in Gettysburg. Mela is located in the brand new Jack's Hard Cider facility and will feature brick oven pizza and Italian-inspired small plates and entrees. On this episode, Cooking in a Smaller Market, the impact of COVID-19 on life and business, how to, and if you should, market and self-promote during a global pandemic, and so much more. And thanks to this week's sponsor, Jug Bridge Brewery, located at 911 East Patrick Street in Frederick, Maryland. Both Jug Bridge and Pizza Llama are still available for carry-out orders. Thanks so much, and have a great week. Welcome, everyone. This is the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast. This is Chris, and today I have Josh Fidler with us. He's a chef in the Gettysburg, Pennsylvania area. Hey, Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
It's going great. Thanks for coming on, doing another one of our COVID Zoom sessions, as I'm calling them. I'm glad to be able to get you on here. You know, we've talked for a number of years on social media. We've never actually even met up in person. So I'm glad that you could jump on and do a podcast with us.
Well, there's no better time than right now, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm hoping I can get a few of these done in the next couple of weeks. So why don't you go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to talk about. You know, what's your background? Where are you working? Where have you cooked? And kind of how you got there.
I've been in the industry for probably about 20 years, off and on. At a very young age, I started working at delis and I was just always drawn into that kind of work and worked for a couple really good chefs when I got out of college, just kind of kicking around. I didn't really start my career until I started cooking at the Gary Owen Irish Pub here in Gettysburg, which is just a phenomenal little pub if anybody's into that kind of thing. So I just sort of that was about 10 years ago. And I just that's when I decided to get more serious about it and just started reading and taking in all I could and testing and failing and testing and failing until, got more comfortable with it. Worked there for a while and then opened my own restaurant about 4.5 years ago in Biglerville, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Gettysburg, about 4 or 5 miles. Really cool little spot with a wood-fired pizza oven and a small kitchen, small dining room. And it was really, really good experience. And we went for about 4 years, and then we were trying to get a liquor license and do all that kind of stuff to, the margins on just the BYOB restaurant are really thin. So we weren't able to obtain that. So we shut that down. I think it was about 2.5 years ago now. And then I moved on. I was doing some consulting work for Gearhouse Brewing Company in Chambersburg. And I I asked them, hey, well, I'm shutting down my place. Do you want me to come on staff and get everybody, on the same page with this new menu change? And I worked there for about a year. That was a great experience. Such a good crew of people and the owners there. Just amazing people in the way that they handle their business and the culture that they had there. So I fit in really good there. That was a really successful time. That kitchen crew up there, it was the first time I felt, we really, really jived and everybody was working as a team and there was no drama. And so that was a really, really good time. So now I'm just working on a new project up here in Gettysburg with the Jack's Hard Cider Company. Is opening a new production facility. They've expanded up to about 40,000 square foot facility and an old movie theater here outside of Gettysburg at the outlet shops. We're going to put in about a 6,000 square foot tasting room and restaurant there. And that's going to be called, it's called Mela. It's going to be a rustic, simple Italian kitchen, Italian style kitchen with a pizza oven as the main focus. I just love making pizza, so I had to have that. And we're going to do some family style stuff, some very social dining kind of experience there. So that's where we're at the moment.
What are the diners in Gettysburg like? Do you have a good idea? I'm sure you do, but like, what are people looking for? And do you feel that that's different than other cities?
It's actually a very diverse crowd of people. We've got Gettysburg College here that brings in a lot of people, whether it's professors or faculty and staff. And then the parents of those kids. And that's a big portion of the local business here. Locally, I've been cooking in this town for, 15, 20 years. Like I got my first job at a deli when I was 15 years old. So I've worked in various establishments. So I've seen it grow and I've seen it change. I've seen some people be too early. I worked for a really good Greek chef, Dimitri, and he opened up a Mediterranean restaurant, which was phenomenal place. He's doing baby octopus grilled, whole grilled snapper, the whole 9 yards. And he was just a phenomenal chef. And he was the first one who really inspired me to take it to the next level, from like sandwiches and soup to whatever. And, he was I like to say we're about 10 years behind the trends. I think when the Food Network started hitting and all that media focusing on food, it really helped us as chefs to be able to push that forward. And, at the Gary Owen, we would have our regular kind of Irish staple menu, but then we were doing really crazy specials. And I saw that there was a need and a want for the people that were driving to Frederick to eat and wanted that more city-like feel. Now it's been challenging in a way, but that's been also great because as a chef, like we can push people. And I think that's what we enjoy to do. I don't know how many times I make stuff that people are like, oh, I would never eat octopus, or I would never eat that. But if it's properly prepared and they trust the chef, then all of a sudden they're like, that's their favorite dish now on the menu. So yeah, it's been challenging. I love this area. So it's like, I will never give up on it. I'll just keep pushing and keep pushing. And there's so many great organizations with, the historical prevalence of the area. So we've done really cool dinners, like in the show barn at Eisenhower Farm. We did a dinner a couple years ago for like 70 people. The greatest thing about this area too is the farms. Like we have literally everything that we need, we could get right here.
One of the cool things I think about being in Frederick is for all the city feel, we have so many local farms. You can get great product, meat, dairy, all of that, and kind of have that rural/city feel.
I know, and it was weird when I had Fidler and Company, my restaurant in Biglerville. We got a lot of people coming up from DC. The agritourism business up here in Gettysburg was growing. We were doing a farm dinner series at Beach Spring Farm through the summer. Like we would do 5 or 6 dinners, farm to table, and that kind of monikers kind of always bugged me because I think that all food comes from a farm somewhere.
Did you do them out at their farm?
Yeah. Jane is her name. She's a lovely, lovely lady, and she would just bring wicker baskets of fresh produce right to my restaurant 2 or 3 times a week. And I'll tell you, man, that was the highlight of my cooking career, is just having her come in with the most beautiful produce. And it just changes the way you think about cooking, and it changes the way that you cook. And yeah, so she has a beautiful events barn out there. So we would put on these huge dinners, and those were the best couple years that I had.
Well, I did a dinner out at her place too. I got connected with, was it
So
Explore Gettysburg or something?
Jane.
Yeah, I did. I can't remember if it's called Explore Gettysburg or something like that, but I was doing
Was it Savor Gettysburg?
Savers Gettysburg. Gettysburg.
Like,
Sorry, yeah.
Like Lori.
I got connected with Lori. So we did a farmers market tour and then a farm to table dinner. So the first thing I did was we did a walking through downtown on a Saturday morning and went to the farmers market, and I had a crew of about 15 people with me, and we picked out all the stuff that they wanted to get, and then we walked back to the Arts Council and I did a hands-on cooking demo meal there. And then a couple weeks later, we did a dinner out at the farm where they had done the whole tour. I guess there was like a little bus that drove around the Gettysburg area, and they went to the mushroom farm and they went to an orchard or something. And then I was out at Beach Springs Farm waiting for them to come. And then they came with all the stuff that they had procured throughout the day. And then I had to put together like a 6-course dinner for them. And we just had, big, long 8-foot tables out on the farm there and did a dinner outside. And that was really awesome.
So you've been to the farm, so
yeah.
you know how beautiful it is. Yeah. So I think that, it was funny. We would get all these people coming to Fidler and Company from Frederick, DC, Baltimore, because it's a great place to come and spend a weekend. And I think that that influx of that agritourism is also driving what we put on our menus here, because they're coming here, but they're also looking for the food that they're used to eating in DC. And people would ask me all the time, like, why is your restaurant out here in the middle of nowhere? And I said, well, I like to make things as difficult as possible for myself. That's sort of what drives me. Plus the rent's really cheap. So, the overhead was very low. So you could get into it without, risking bankrupting yourself for the rest of your life. So I don't see the closing of that restaurant so much as a failure as just like, that was an awesome snapshot in time, in the time of the, culinary movement of this area. And I think it influenced a lot of stuff, and it brought a lot of farms to the forefront, and it brought us together as a community. And it was sad to close it, but I don't see it as a failure though. Like I said, going back to us being about 10 years behind on the trends, it's like, this Greek restaurant I worked at was one of the best restaurants, no matter what city it was in. And it's just sort of like people just weren't quite ready. Had it been 5-6 years later, I think it would have been fine. So sometimes I think when you are a risk taker, that's just a risk that you take on, is that, are people going to get this? They might, or they might not. So, but yeah, I think as far as our food scene is concerned here, it's growing, and I can see it getting better and better. And we have a lot of great restaurants here. We've got really good Greek pizzerias. Tommy's Pizza is one of the best places to eat up here, and the Gary Owen, of course. There's a bunch of new places popping up, pizzerias, distilleries, and with our laws changing up here, we've seen just a huge influx of breweries and distilleries because of the way that the laws are structured.
And I think people come out for that. I mean, I think going forward with your new project, you have that to your benefit. It seems like people are more than willing to travel for a brewery, winery, distillery, cider house, and I see that as a major opportunity.
But yeah, for sure, we see the success of places like Trogs and all the cool little breweries, and people will just make a whole day of just driving from place to place, have brunch here, have dinner here. Gear House is a good example of that, and watching them build such a fiercely loyal clientele was really inspiring.
How has the whole COVID-19 pandemic affected things for you, both personally and with the process of getting this new place open? Like, what's happening right now?
We were moving ahead pretty full steam on this project, and then when the COVID thing hit here in the States, it pushed us off course a little bit. I was really glad that we weren't open, because that would have been worse if we had hired 50 people and had to just like deal with that fallout right away. So we've had to kind of transition our energies. I mean, they're still working on the build out, and we're still working on getting all the equipment in and all that stuff, but it's really put it up in the air as far as like, we can't really set an open date and we can't really do this. And we've still got some payroll that we got to try to cover for the opening team that's working on it. So we've been trying to pivot into like to-go cider. We're getting into like delivery cider. Just anything we can do, as I think any business right now is trying to pivot. And it's been really interesting to watch full service restaurants transition into takeout restaurants, and how McDonald's and the fast food chains are doing fine, and probably, I would imagine, increasing profits because there's not that many places to eat.
Yeah, I don't see any fast food places going out of business during or after this.
No, because they're set up for that business, that drive-through business from the get up. So, but if you've got a 100-seat restaurant and you've got the overhead of a 100-seat restaurant, transitioning to takeout is sort of like fool's gold or a futile effort to say, like, maybe we can keep 1 or 2 people on staff with this, because, you've got the building, you've got the electric, you've got just massive amounts of overhead. So it's been really interesting. I think there's like a 500-seat restaurant downtown in Gettysburg that's fairly new, and they've just got like a little pizza takeout set up on the sidewalk, and I just see the owner out there, and she's just trying to sell pizzas and some to-go beer. And yeah, man, it's been hard to watch, and it's been very, very stressful, and emotionally, I've just been a little wrecked about it, because I love restaurants more than anything. My life is just restaurants. Like, all my vacations are based around restaurants and the social aspect of it. And I think in communities, like, I know you have chefs without restaurants, but you also need restaurants in your community. Where do you go for birthdays?
I love restaurants. I mean, yes, I run Chefs Without Restaurants, but I love restaurants. I love going out, just like you, vacations planned around where we're going, like what cities, and I need to make sure we have reservations at all the restaurants I want to go to. I mean, I absolutely love them, and I hope we can do everything we can to save restaurants. And the numbers that I'm hearing being thrown out about the number and percentage of restaurants that are just going to close for good is so depressing right now.
Oh, I know. I've heard, upwards of 60%, and having owned a restaurant and knowing what's in the bank account at all times is barely enough to get most places, even big places. It's not just small restaurants, it's large restaurants groups. It's the profit margins aren't different. It's just the amount of money coming in and the amount of overhead. So it's all kind of scales. Yeah, it's been tough, and I've been chatting with other chef and servers and bartender friends, and just trying to see how everybody's navigating this new landscape. Some of it's been very inspiring, and we can see how strong we are as a community and a people, and seeing how people are changing their social media patterns and being more helpful and kind and empathetic, and how can we help each other through this. And I'm trying to set up some Zoom meetings for cooking classes and just things like that, so we can still connect. I mean, I'm a social person. I need to be in there with my kitchen crew all day, joking around and having that social interaction. So for me, it's very hard to just sit in my house. And I think if I didn't have social media to stay connected in some way, I would be going nuts right now.
And you and I had talked like off podcast early, like how do you continue to be relevant on social media? How do you not come off as tone deaf, to have an Instagram where you're just saying, Throwback Thursday, here's this beautiful steak that, we used to serve at the restaurant. Like, what does your social media page look like these days? How do you keep relevant, keep on top of things and be in people's mind when it's kind of tone deaf to be self-promotional? You might not even be open for another 3 months. Like, what should you be posting for quote unquote content for the next couple weeks and months?
Yeah, it's something that we've struggled with, and we've had meetings that try to figure it out. And you just don't want to have those cringeworthy posts up where you're just self-serving and every restaurant's closed in the country, and you're trying to promote a new project. It's like, I think you had said earlier that, your approach has always kind of been to be more informative and take a teaching sort of method to your social media presence. And I totally agree with you. And I think that's the best. And, in the past, like if you have restaurants, like, okay, we'll make a dish, we'll take a picture of it and we'll put it up, and you'll be like, wow, that looks good, I should go there and eat. Or you'll be like, why didn't you post that special 7 days ago? Then I would have known about it and I could have made plans, So it's like, I just made this up today, so that I'm posting it today.
Every 5 minutes on my Instagram, someone's going live, and quite often with someone else. It's just crazy the amount of people who are doing the cooking shows, pivoting towards like Instagram cooking demos, doing TikTok videos. Like everyone right now is in full on I'm cooking at home mode. Come watch and see what I'm doing and ask me a bunch of questions.
Yeah. And I've been doing the same thing, and it's been really, really cool. I mean, we have a brand new newborn baby here, just born last week. So been just trying to keep my wife nourished and just keep ourselves sane, really.
You have more than enough going on.
Yeah, it's been great though. And her name's Helena, and she's a beautiful, beautiful little girl. So yeah, I was like making biscuits yesterday, and so people started DMing me, oh, let me get that recipe or whatever. And, I think I'm in the phase of my career where like, I just want to teach people. You go through all these stages, I think, as a cook and chef. Like I've had my like arrogant, nasty yelling stage, and I've worked through that, and I have my own restaurant sort of stage. And now I'm in the like, what can I do to help my community and the farmers and the people and teaching people. So, I'm trying to set up some Zoom meetings to do some biscuit demos and stuff with people. And, it's like this COVID thing has really affected the whole industry. And me personally, we don't have a restaurant that's open, so it doesn't affect me like so much in that sense, but just a sense of like, when are we going to be able to get back out there? And when are we going to be able to nourish people in the community again? And I think that being unknown can offer a certain amount of grief and a certain amount of stress onto you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I always loved about what I'm doing with my Perfect Little Bites business is going into people's homes and cooking in front of them and making it as interactive as they want. And they're always asking questions. And people are so surprised when I say, oh yeah, and just email me, I'll give you recipes. Because I think there's this idea of like secret recipes, like every chef and restaurant have their recipes and they don't want to share them. It's like, no, I like built my whole business around sharing and educating. And yeah, here's my crab cake. And if you want the recipe for it, email me and I'll send you the recipe and, make it and let me know what you think. And if you have questions, like I'm here like 24/7, just reach out to me via social media or email or phone even, and I'll talk you through like anything. And even unrelated, I've always said, like, if you're going to hop on a plane and go to Denver and you want recommendations on restaurants to eat at, like I will tell you. And that's how I've always built my business. So, it was an easy transition for me to keep doing what I'm doing, sharing recipes, some new stuff, some old stuff. And then with the Chefs Without Restaurants community, just being there as a resource to share as much that I know. Right now, a lot of the members of the community are asking questions like, how do I file for unemployment? Can I, if I'm self-employed? Like, what should I be doing about this? And just building a community around that idea of kind of crowdsourcing information and like, let's get as much info out there for everyone and share it as quickly and as widely as we can.
That's really interesting. I've always been really inclined to share recipes, and, I think I don't have any secret recipes. I don't, I can tell you what's in something and you could make it and it's going to be a little different than when I make it. I just really never understood that, like, oh, I can't tell you that or whatever. At Gear House, I'd just be out in the dining room talking to people, to serve them a dish. How do you make this? And I walk them through the whole thing. And I think that, there's very, very little that's new in the culinary world. And it's basically like, as we learn different cuisines and, there's probably a point early in my career where I thought, oh, wow, I discovered this. And I mean, you can quickly Google search any idea that you have and it's pretty much already been done. So it's like food and music are kind of like the same thing. It's like, I just get it out there, share it with the world. And, I think that's just a really important thing to do. there's only a few things that I feel can't be messed with. And, but yeah, everything else is sort of open to interpretation. And I think that's the great thing about cooking is once you learn those basic skills and you've got a little bit of like arsenal of tricks and things, then like you can really start kind of riffing on things, and you kind of realize like, oh, well, that traditional recipe isn't as important as I thought it was. As long as I'm sticking somewhat to that, I do like fundamentals and tradition and some things.
Yeah. I mean, I like to have a reference point, and sometimes from the outsider, they don't realize it. Like I make a smoked Gouda hot pepper relish spread, and people love it. And it's like, it's really literally just pimento cheese. And I just found a pimento cheese recipe that I liked. And it's like taking out the cheddar and adding smoked Gouda, and then taking out the pimentos and adding like hoagie spread, but
Yeah.
there's still this reference point of you've had pimento cheese, you know what it's like. So you get it. But people don't even always connect the dots of going from A to B. It was really easier than they might think. And I always just like to start with something very classic or traditional, kind of nail the preparation on that, and then slowly change one ingredient or technique at a time. And you still can kind of recognize the original inspiration for that dish. That's how I like to cook.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
So I want to jump into some of these rapid fire questions we do, if you're ready for that. We've always kind of said like one word answer, but they never end up being one word answer. So, kind of short and to the point. So making them kind of relevant for the times we're in right now. What are some pantry items you think are essential? Like a couple of weeks ago, I think we had an idea that we were going to be locked indoors for a couple of weeks. Was there anything that you went and made sure you stocked up on and had, or wished that you had? Like, what are some things that if you were going to be home for 2 or 3 weeks that you want to have on hand at home?
The first thing I did is I went out to Farm Said Butcher, and I got a bunch of meat to put in the freezer, just pork and ground beef, sausage, things that I could just incorporate into any dish. Dried pasta, a lot of beans. I bought a lot of beans, but I've been really into cooking beans lately and trying to figure out that whole thing.
So you're buying dried or canned or both?
It's funny because I tried to buy dried, but apparently now everybody's just like a prepper or whatever. And everybody apparently knows how to cook dried beans now because it was really hard to find. So I had to get canned on most of them. So like I made red beans and rice the other night with canned beans, and actually it was fine. And I don't think there's anything wrong with canned beans. So beans, eggs, of course. We've got some local places, so this has been interesting too, because I've really seen the local farms like shining in this moment, because Giant or wherever we go get groceries at, it's always out of eggs, always out of milk. But like you could just drive like a mile down the road and get eggs and meat and because everyone's like, oh, the stores are out of meat, what are we going to do? And I'm like, well, go check this place out. And maybe we should have been doing this all along. So I'm hoping that it's going to like push people even farther into realizing that we can get this stuff locally and it's being raised responsibly and sustainably. So,
and from an interaction standpoint, it's also less risky right now. I think the last time I went to Wegmans a couple of weeks ago, I had to wait in a line that was 60 minutes long just to check out. So when they're talking about, 6 feet distance and all that, like you're in the store, there's another 200 people there kind of doomsday prepping, and then you have to stand right next to them in line for an hour. I feel like if you just go to this farm, there's probably a good chance there's not even anyone else there besides the farm owner, depending on your timing.
No, it's been great, and then like we're so lucky, being in a rural area that we have access to that, and being in New York City, I have some friends living up there right now, and I chat with them at night, and there's just way more people up there, and way harder to get resources, and they don't have that farm down the street that they can go to. So, that I think that's a win for the rural communities, and I'm hoping that there's a positive outcome here. And I think there will be a lot of positive outcomes to such a dire situation.
Yeah, it's interesting to see also seeds being sold out. I know a lot of people have had trouble getting seeds, and I have a pretty good seed collection. So I didn't have to get anything this year, but I know friends who've been trying to get some seeds to start growing their own stuff and aren't having a lot of luck getting things right now.
Yeah, I know. It's been crazy, because I was watching Doomsday Preppers the other day, because I think it's a really funny show. And then I was looking online, and I went on a seed website, and they were out of seeds, and all these things that people are predicting this apocalyptic situation. So I wanted to add that, like, in my pantry, like, I have to have good vinegar. That's like one of my staples. And what else did I buy? I got butter. I made sure I had a lot of butter and olive oil and things like that. And that's what I was like going through the store, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get like the giant jar of olive oil, things that were important to me, that like everyone's grabbing toilet paper and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but if I don't have any oil, like, I can't cook anything.
I bought 2 gigantic things of olive oil at the store.
Yeah, it's just like, I think chefs like going in are going to pick way different stuff. I actually I got a lot of frozen vegetables and things because I need to feed my wife and then in turn my new baby girl. So it's like, I'm not going to buy a bunch of fresh vegetables that are going to spoil within 3 weeks if I can't use them all. So I just stock up on my peas and green beans. And I think that's okay. This is cooking at home. This is way different than a restaurant. And I've struggled with that too. And I don't always like cooking at home because either the fire's not hot enough, or I can't yield the same result, and I don't have this piece of equipment. So, and then having a new child, I've had to really adjust the way that I cook, and because I have to do it quicker and faster and healthier and this and that. So it's like, I'm like microwaving a baked potato because I can do that while I'm like making a quick pasta dish. It's like
we microwaved 2 sweet potatoes last night, so I'm with you.
It worked pretty good though, right? It does work really well. So.
Absolutely. It's really hard. Like, my in-laws live with us, and then I have twins who are almost 8, so there's 6 people, and we're now eating 3 meals a day at home for 6 people. That's a lot more food than we were used to. I mean,
oh yeah.
You're spending all day either prepping food or doing dishes right now, because my kids used to eat at school. My in-laws ate a lot on their own or would go out, and now it's like we're just all eating at home, and it's a big thing right now, the amount of food that we're going through. And we've instituted, especially with the kids, a no waste policy. Not that I ever like wasting, but my son would eat half a grilled cheese sandwich and then just like toss it or something. It's like, no, like, you're eating that, or it's going in the fridge and you're eating it tomorrow, because I'm not going to the store for at least 2 weeks.
Man, it's yeah, that's wild. And like, we only have the 2 of us here right now, so it's like much less, but it's the same exact thing. I'm just cooking all day and then doing the dishes. But it's actually been, part of that's been really amazing, just to like I made biscuits from scratch at home last night. I never do that,
I made fried chicken last week.
Oh, that actually looked really good.
We made banana bread. I've got a dough rising right now for like a regular boule that I'm going to do. And then I've got some pizza dough going. And those are all the things that I've wanted to do. And I'm making pickles this afternoon because we have some cauliflower that's on the way out. I mean, it's still good. The kids don't particularly love it, but I find anything we pickle. So I'm doing like a curried pickled cauliflower, and I'm going to do that, and then that'll give us a couple days on it. And I guarantee you everyone would rather just eat the cold, pickled cauliflower than like steamed or roasted cauliflower in this house.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think I'm with your family on that. So yeah, it's been like, that's like a silver lining of the whole thing. And I've been trying to focus in on the positives of the situation.
Yeah, you have to where you can. And maybe it's a reorganization of your priorities. You just kind of eliminate the fluff. We've kind of talked about that with restaurants, but the same at your home. It's crazy. I bought some clippers on Amazon and we gave each other haircuts this week. And I'm like, cool, like maybe we'll never go to the barber again. Like, I'm kind of happy with the job my wife did. My son got a mohawk that he's always wanted because he's like, I'm home for a month, like it'll grow out. And we just took the clippers, and I've never cut anyone's hair, but I gave him a mohawk. It's like, oh, cool. We saved like $45 that we normally would have spent at the barber. And now we can do it for free at home. It's going to get a lot weirder, I think, as time progresses too.
Oh, for sure.
But the cooking has been really interesting. I see a lot of memes and jokes on the internet about everyone with their sourdoughs. All of a sudden everyone's a baker. And, thank God I just happened to have 2 bags of bread flour before this started. And Christine Van Bloom in Frederick, who runs the kitchen studio, unfortunately had to close down. And she offered up a 12-pound bag of AP flour that she had. So I felt like I hit the lottery when I went to her house the other night and did a porch pickup of 12 pounds of flour. I'm like, it's back on. I can do some baking stuff. But my yeast is starting to run out, so I need to get a sourdough starter going.
Yeah, and I think another advantageous thing that chefs have is like, I have a little bit of flour, but I also have a friend who has a bakery that's still baking. So I can just call her up and go get some flour. Or, our food supplier is in Mechanicsburg, and they have a really nice grocery outlet there. So they're not going to be short on flour. So it's like just having the knowledge to know where to get the resources, other than the grocery store shelf.
Yeah, and I've seen a few restaurants turning into like makeshift grocery stores. Like that makes sense, right? Like if you're going to be closing and not doing curbside or takeout and you're sitting on all this product, why not share with your community, maybe make a couple bucks back? Like it doesn't make sense to have a 50-pound bag of flour sitting in a bin when people, are fighting over it in the grocery store.
No, and actually I did get flour at the grocery store yesterday, or no, the day before, but it was the unbleached King Arthur flour. So it was actually the good flour. So
I bought a $7 bag of Bob's Red Mill. It was literally the last bag they had at Wegmans like 2 weeks ago. It was the only thing in the whole store was one bag of like the $7 Bob's Red Mill 2-pound bag of flour. And I bought it because I didn't know when I was going to have anything else. So we've got some, good flour at home too.
So the answer to that question was like 400 words long.
Yeah, that's how we roll. I've kind of incorporated like the speed round into, we're muddying the waters here. Do you have a favorite chef, either, quote unquote celebrity or someone you've really looked up to? Like who do you love in the industry?
So the Greek chef Dimitri that I work for, he was probably my favorite chef that I actually worked for. And I honestly haven't worked for that many chefs. My career sort of, I just sort of took it over. I don't know how to explain it, but I didn't come up like traditionally through hotel kitchens or worked under this chef or that chef. So he was probably one of the only chefs I really worked for. So he is always in my mind going to be one of my favorites, just because it was such a big turning point. I think locally, my favorite chef at the moment is the chef at the Falafel Shack in Chambersburg, Amr. He's just an amazing person. His family's amazing. His restaurant's amazing. The culture that they have at that restaurant is what everybody should be striving for. And he's probably somebody that you should get in touch with for this podcast too, because he's an extraordinary. Their story is extraordinary, where they came from, how they got here, everything. And I've done a few events with him. We did a big pizza fundraiser. He has like a mobile pizza oven that he does at the farmer's market on Saturday morning. So we did a big pizza drive for the food bank, or SCAP, and that's the South Central Pennsylvania, and they like run the food banks and all that. And so we did a pizza fundraiser, and I think we made like 400 doughs and like sold out in an hour. And it was like insane. And it was like Gear House and Falafel Shack working together on it. And that's like, that community in Chambersburg is extraordinary in the way that they are all working together and they're doing it the right way. And I can't praise that community enough right now. And just for restaurants like Falafel Shack to be able to be packed every night that they're open is extraordinary. And he's doing some really, really cool food there. So he's probably one of my favorites right now. As far as like celebrity chefs, David Chang has always been an influence. I just started going up to eat at Noodle Bar, and I was really into the whole like Asian ingredients thing a few years back, and I've eaten at Co, and I've eaten at Sambar. I was trying to eat everywhere, but you can't keep up with the amount of restaurants they're opening. I don't know why I was so drawn to him, and I still listen to his podcast, and it's been really interesting to watch his career grow. But I think if anybody eats my food, you would know that it's influenced by that for sure. I've seen Massimo, like I've seen him speak at an engagement, and that was really cool. Ferran, Adria, like things like that. So, it's like I'm just sort of influenced by so many things, and my house is just full of cookbooks, and if you're like a celebrity chef, I've probably read your cookbook. So
one of my questions is always, do you have a favorite cookbook or a couple that you love and recommend? Like, is there anything you're reading right now or anything you go back to all the time?
there's a Edward Lee cookbook called Smoke and Pickles, and my dad gave it to me for Christmas like 4 years ago, and I'm always going back to that. And I haven't gotten to eat at any of his restaurants, but it's like on my list. So that's one of the cookbooks. I think the Ottolenghi cookbook recently, my dad got me that a while back too, and I didn't really pay much attention to it, but in the last year I've been really drawn to this more simple, rustic style of cooking, and I think that cookbook's perfect for that. And the recipes just for like a simple herb salad, or just really simple hearty food, and so that's been one. The Momofuku cookbook for sure I still go back to. I don't know, do you have any suggestions?
And I have hundreds, if not thousands, of cookbooks. I just go through phases, and we'll just sit and read more for inspiration. I really love reading Christian Puglisi's Relay cookbook, but it's more for his thoughts on things. It's almost like half of it's a journal, and there's a whole thing on like water and how important is water in your restaurant, thinking about, are you using filtered water or not? And when you, make a stock with water and you're taking out of the tap and you have chlorine and all this stuff in it and you cook it down and reduce it, you're reducing down all that crap. And like, maybe you should be putting a water filter on your sinks if you're going to be, using water as everyone does in components. So I love reading books like that, where it just gives you something to think about, where it's not a stone cold recipe.
When I realized like that I like had a passion and creativity for cooking, and I realized that I didn't have skills, like one of the first books I got was the French laundry cookbook, because there was a lot of like technique in there, but then there was a lot of just like thoughts, of how a kitchen's supposed to run, and not coming up in a traditional kitchen sense. Being able to have that knowledge from Thomas Keller like was indispensable. I didn't know what family meal was. We don't have that in rural Pennsylvania restaurant, So we've over the years tried to implement those fundamental theories, and then just like learning that basic technique stuff. Really, that was a book that really helped launch me. And that was like interesting about my career, is like we have so much access to information now that if you know how to use it correctly, like you can really, it can really help you to progress in your career faster than, back in the day when you'd have to travel to France or Japan to get any of this information. And I think that waters down the market a little bit and gives some people a false sense of security. So it's like whenever I really want to get into a dish, like, so ramen, like I love ramen, like who doesn't love ramen? And I played around with ramen for 4.5 years before I ever put it on a menu, because I was like, okay, we've got this ramen that comes in the packs and it's really salty, but it's kind of delicious. And then I went to Noodle Bar to eat, and then I went to other ramen places in New York and put in the research and figured it out, But like, I didn't have to go to Japan, and I didn't, I can make really good ramen noodles from scratch just by, what I've learned through the cookbooks that I've read. And
we've talked about that a lot, like the whole culinary school thing. And, we've had the question, like, is it worth it or not? I went to culinary school in 1994. Like, we didn't even have the internet when I was a freshman, and we had a culinary library where they had very few cookbooks. There weren't that many at the time. And they only had one copy. So when you had to do a report on French cooking, you had to race to the library to get like the one book. And if it was gone, it was gone. And you didn't have the resources where, it's not the same, obviously, but you can spend tons of time reading cookbooks, watching YouTube videos, reaching out to people via the internet, asking them questions, and you can get there a lot on your own without having to work in a restaurant or go to culinary school, and at least have a better foundation before you start, and not just go into a restaurant with zero experience, I think.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I went to school for photography and graphic design because at the time that's what I was really into, and I think that degree has been indispensable and helping me to see the world in a different way and to see things in aesthetically pleasing way. And it's helped me with plating, and it's helped me to design my menus, and I didn't have to pay for all that stuff. And so it's been helpful, but I wish I could have gone to culinary school. Like, I know that it's too expensive and you don't get a job that warrants, spending 60 grand or whatever, I know all those things, but if you do have the opportunity, I think, it would be great. Cause like, it took me years to like learn how to make sauces because I didn't have that fundamental training in it.
I'm always recommending looking for workshops and things like that to kind of go deep into the things you're interested in.
No, and I totally agree. And I've had a handful of like parents that would eat at my restaurant and be like, my kid wants to go to culinary school. Is that worth it? And I mean, my answer is always like, well, do you have a lot of money or not? Like, I mean, I don't think any education, I'm a big believer in education. So I don't think any education is bad, but I say, unless you have a large amount of dispensable income, then they'd be better off picking a restaurant they want to work at and go beg the chef for a job and just get paid to learn. And you're not going to get paid a lot, but you're going to get paid something. And, you're going to, there's nothing that a chef, even at like a mid-level rural regional restaurant can't teach you. I think that's my answer. And I hope that I didn't keep any kids from going to culinary school, and have their parents just force them into servitude. But it's like, I do agree with you. Like, there's so much resource out there now that if you want to learn and you have the drive, you can find that information. And if you treat that information with respect and you understand that, I think that's completely fine. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that like a home cook could be every bit as good at cooking a product, making pasta, doing charcuterie. And I think the difference, the main difference I've come to learn is like a chef in a restaurant situation, it's so much more than just like cooking the food. It's like managing the people.
And speed and organization. What was the question again? Oh, your favorite chef or recommend a book. So the last question we always ask is, what do you want to be remembered for? I know that's definitely not like on the fly, but yeah,
that's heavy.
Yeah, personally or professionally, like what's the mark you're hoping to leave?
I think just like being remembered for being helpful and kind and teaching people and just bring some sort of joy to the world. It's a crazy place to live and to be in. And I think through restaurants, I've been able to bring that joy to people, and hopefully we can just keep moving with that. No matter, we don't know what that looks like right now, but that's it. And just being kind, empathetic, and just, trying to be a good person.
Right on. I hope for the same thing myself. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you? Do you want people to find you on the internet, to reach out? Is there any Instagram, Facebook, anything you want to?
Yeah, if you want to check out, it's a Chef Josh Fidler on Instagram. That's basically the only social media. Oh, you can check out Eat at Mela on Instagram too. That's our Instagram for the new project. There's not a whole lot of content on there yet, but we're trying to navigate that, like as we talked about earlier, to see what we should be putting on there. So
very cool. Well, I hope we all get out of here really soon and can go get some food and drinks. And,
I just want to like cook some food for people. And it's funny, cooking at home, I'm still making too much food. It's like, I just cooked for 12 and it's just me and my wife. So it's leftover red beans and rice for the rest of the week.
Well, as always, everyone, you can find us at chefswithoutrestaurants.com and .org. You can reach out to me at chefswithoutrestaurants@gmail.com. Find us on all social media platforms. If you want to be on the show, let me know, and hope to see you around. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for listening to the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show or sponsoring a show, please let us know. We can be reached at chefswithoutrestaurants@gmail.com. Thanks so much.